I'm Quinn Lemley with Secrets of the Stage. This is the place where we pull back the curtain and we dive into the creative process. And today we're going to talk about filmmaking and podcasts and documentaries and editing. So many exciting things in the film realm and the podcast realm. I have producer and director. I have Mark Blumberg. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm very excited to be here.
You well, I know you through another guest of ours, Corey, and he was telling about this podcast that you're doing that's very unusual about Phantom of the Opera.
It is pretty unusual. It's called My Phantom Memory.
What a great title.
Yeah, we were really proud about that one. It follows an actor, a swing actor, who was with the Phantom Company for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. And he's, I think, second in terms of number of performances that he had been in Phantom. And at around the time that Phantom was closing, I met him by chance, and he agreed to come in. He came in once a week to the booth, and we did these recordings. And we gave him an audio recorder, and he took it backstage and kind of recorded like snippets of what was going on. He kept a little audio diary.
Like the daily life of being a swing?
Yeah, that,
Backstage.
and then also like the last time doing everything, right? Like everything was suddenly, oh, this is the last time I'm playing this part.
Wow. That must have been emotional.
Yeah, it's a very emotional show, actually, because he started the show in his 20s and, is being dumped out in his middle age.
Wow.
So it's all about the process of creating memory and also experiencing time.
Did you discover that within the material?
He before we thought about doing an interview, he told me a quick story that kind of sent a chill down my spine. And it was the story, there was an actor in the Phantom cast named Dick Pugh. And Scott would tell me that there's a moment in Phantom where they all have to rush onto the stage, and so based on which character he's playing, because he understudied 2 roles, and he was the swing for 10 ensemble roles.
How does he keep it straight in his mind?
So there's this one part where they all had to rush on the stage very quickly, and he would be like, okay, who am I tonight? I'm behind Dick Pugh tonight. And then he had this moment where he realized, oh, Dick Pugh's been out of the show, and he's been dead for several years.
Oh my God.
And that, but
like a deja vu kind of moment.
He still kind of remembers that he has that magical thinking of not knowing exactly what year it is sometimes, because he's been doing the same show. The show's evolved over time, but it's still kind of the same, has to do the same thing every show. And so he told me that story about how then I realized Dick Pugh was dead. And then I was like, there's something there. We should really interview you.
Wow.
Something about just the strangeness of that experience of doing a show for such a long time, and then it ending.
Right. And how he goes in as a young man and he's playing, did the roles change as he aged, or has he been swinging the same roles?
Yeah, he was an understudy for Raoul at the very beginning, and then now he is sort of doing more. He did the opera managers, which are 2 very different but older characters than Raoul, and then all the ensemble members as well.
How does he remember his tracks? And that set is moving all the time, and the chandelier, just for safety reasons, to remember your track.
Right. He said he did describe the way that it's a large stage, but it's so crowded with sets and costumes and people that it actually shrinks quite a bit, and you have to know exactly where you're standing because flats are moving behind you. And so it was a real experience learning about all that stuff from him.
Wow.
And then later, crafting the narrative in the edit took some time.
How do you, I have 2 questions. First of all, I want to know how you met and how the project originated.
So the way we met, if I was to go way back, you'd have to understand something about Texas. And the fact that Texas was once a center of German immigration, and that in the 19th century, a lot of people don't know that Germans actually were the first people to popularize Westerns as a novel, because they were so enchanted by the idea of going to the American West.
Really?
American Southwest. Yeah.
I had no idea.
This has nothing to do with family opera, but this is a stretch here we're going to go on.
Okay.
So because they couldn't hunt on the Lord's land, and Texas was this place where people were just giving away the land because they wanted settlers. They wanted frontiers people. So they got a lot of Germans all of a sudden. And the Germans kind of kept together in these communes. And one of these communes became this town called Fredericksburg. They were very progressive. They were anti-slavery. They negotiated their own treaties with the Native Americans. And
this is what time period?
19th century.
Okay.
So there's a big influx of European immigrants. And nowadays, Fredericksburg is more known as kind of like they have like a hill country wine valley kind of thing going on. But like they only can grow the hardiest grapes known to man because it's a dry area. So my in-laws, I went to school in Austin for film.
So are you from Texas?
No, I'm from New Jersey.
Oh my God, okay.
I'm a musical theater kid from New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
I went to Texas for film school. I met my wife there, and her parents moved to Fredericksburg because of they were hanging out there for the wine country thing.
Okay.
And I was
with the hardy grapes.
With the hardy grapes, it's not good. It's not good.
No.
It's not good wine. But we went to this tasting, and we're just kind of like driving around. And there was an estate sale there, and it's just this little house on a corner, and we walk in, and everyone's kind of like day drunk off of bad wine. I mean, it wasn't. I can't keep saying it's bad wine. It's like Fredericksburg's a nice place. You should visit. So,
right.
It's right.
Right.
And my mother-in-law calls me into this bedroom, and there on this bed is this gigantic box. It's like this big, and it's a wooden box, and it's got this kind of moldy cloth on it. And I realized it's actually a curtain, and in the back there's like a set of like a castle or something. And I pick it up and look at it, and she's like, "Wow, you really need to get this," And I'm like, "Okay." It's an old German paper theater, and it came in these books that the teachers would cut out, and they pasted onto wood.
Right.
And it came from an old German schoolhouse back when Fredericksburg was German speaking exclusively until like the 1950s.
Wow.
So, she bought it for me, and I had this thing. I had this thing in my tiny apartment. I had it in my big roommate-filled house in Austin. I had it in my tiny apartment in Austin. I trucked it over here to Brooklyn, and it was sitting there like wrapped up. And every now and then I'd look at it, but it was kind of like when I had kids, it was too dangerous for them to play with because there were like nails sticking out and everything. I came to the point where I was like, I need to sell this. And the only person who wanted to buy this thing was this guy on Craigslist who messaged me and was a collector of theater memorabilia.
Wait, what do you even call this thing? Like
I called it
the German set.
German paper theater.
Paper theater.
Yeah.
Okay.
A German paper theater. If you need me to go back and fix any of that, I don't know. It's
that's
kind of
okay.
This is a long story.
Okay.
But he's the only person who wanted to buy it. It was this guy who collected theater memorabilia, and I brought it down from my like fourth floor walk up. Helped him load it into his car in Brooklyn.
Oh, in Brooklyn. Okay.
Yeah, and he. And I like very quickly learned that he was an actor in Phantom of the Opera, and Phantom was closing in a few months.
Right.
So it's just kind of like we kind of hit it off there, and then he started to come in to record interviews. That's the basis of our relationship was the German paper theater, which he still has in storage somewhere in Connecticut.
Wow. So, he obviously bought his house from Phantom of the Opera, right?
Right.
From
right.
doing.
Right.
So. How did you start doing interviews, and how did he start sharing his stories with you, or were you probing him, being a musical theater?
As an actor, he's kind of trained to get more vulnerable more quickly than most people, and that was a huge asset. First, we kept it kind of loose because I always feel like in New York City, people are always kind of coming up off the street, and they still have a lot of that on them. And I think
the
it's
armor,
the
New
armor.
York armor.
Yeah, because
right.
like you're on your street, and people are just kind of like obstacles.
Right.
Like people with like AirPods probably listen to a podcast in front of you. You just have to kind of like move them out of your way on the subway. Can't even say excuse me anymore.
Right.
You just have to shove them.
Yes.
And so like there'd be a kind of a casual rapport and stuff, and then eventually we would kind of circulate around to something more like where you just want to get to that feeling where it feels kind of warm in the room. Like you feel like, okay, this is happening now. And once you hit that topic that is getting there, then you kind of try to stay out of the way and like kind of let it happen, ask little follow-ups here and there. And every now and then ask a surprise question to switch back to the thing that you wanted to get to before that was really important, but like we weren't ready to talk about it. But like, I feel like when I describe this process, I feel like I'm taking all the credit. Like a lot of it just came from Scott. He was participatory.
And his name is Scott.
Scott Makita.
Scott Makita.
Yeah.
How did he wind up in Phantom of the Opera?
The way we tell the story, it's heavily implied that it was because his girlfriend at the time was in the show, and he kept auditioning to sort of be around each other more. But it was just a really popular show in the 90s.
Right,
it was just kind of like
it. How did he change? How did he evolve over the years?
You know, that's like the subject of the entire show.
Oh, you mean I nailed it, and I'm here.
No, it's like how much do you change and how much do you not change, right?
Right.
Like doing this, when you have the same job for such a long time, the changes can arrive so slowly that you don't even notice it. And a lot of the times when we were recording, he wouldn't even realize that it was so different back then, that he was different back then. Because you just kind of get into the flow of doing the thing. Yeah. You know.
And then also to have the privilege, which is a rare privilege, as you know, being a director, editor, and filmmaker, and as an actor, to have a steady job.
Right.
In the theater,
no,
on
reality,
Broadway. I mean, most people do not have that.
In reality, he's in an enviable position, for sure. Yeah.
Yes. So he's in this enviable position of being employed for all these years.
Yeah.
And being on Broadway. And then what happens?
Well,
I mean, I know you can't give it away, but
he ends up getting. I mean, we don't get there because it happened relatively recently, but he's actually on tour with Phantom right now.
Oh, he is.
In the same job. He has the same exact job that he did on Broadway. So he ended up in a little tiny little golden parachute for like having the show for so long.
He's like going around the country.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it is like a wake up call of self-discovery. Who am I now?
Yeah. Well, think about
as an artist, as a man, as a person.
So when the show closed, he was 57, and entering into the acting world at that age, when you've never had to do virtual auditions, you've never had to think about how much the Broadway employment sector has changed in 20, 30 years. So it was quite a shock for him, and I think that was that was also what I was interested in. I was like, well, what's going to happen to you next? You know, like there's this kind of.
Were you worried about it? Or do you feel like you start getting emotionally involved with your characters?
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Not that he's a character. He's a real person.
But that's actually an important distinction, because I think there is something about documentary editing, even more so than doing the interview. But when you're editing, you form this kind of relationship with them that is sort of one direction in a way, and it is partially because you're making a lot of choices, and those choices are an extension of yourself. You know, like there's this thing that psychologists know about called the IKEA effect, which is that like you're always going to like the piece of furniture that you built yourself more than the other stuff in the room, even if it's from IKEA. You know, you still have an attachment to that.
As an editor, you have so much power to change the narrative, or to change the story, or change how somebody appears. How do you take that responsibility and?
Well, when I'm not the director, I just throw the responsibility up the ladder. But when I am in charge, like with Scott, I always got him involved before making anything public. I always had him come in and listen. And because with the podcast, we really went into some sensitive subject areas. You know, there'd be times where I would be unsure, like, do we really want to go here? You know, it's sort of there's a balance that you have to find with storytelling, where if you don't find the counterweight with how much you're giving in terms of someone's emotional life, with actual dramatic storytelling, there's this big I word that comes in, which is indulgence, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that word really meant until I was working with Scott's material, because I've been accused of indulgence before.
Well, give me an example of what indulgence is as a director or a podcast director, editor.
I felt like he'd be talking about something difficult, like a divorce. Felt like it was a little bit outside of the box of what a listener might be expecting from a end of Phantom of the Opera podcast. Like suddenly we're not in the Majestic Theater. Suddenly we're in this house with kids, and you know, you're talking about the divorce to them. And I was like, okay, if we let this go on too long, then people are going to feel like this is about Scott doing like therapy for us or something.
Right,
you know?
you don't want that.
And that's where I feel like the indulgence balance happens. It ends up being an important thing in the storyline to understand that kind of part of his life. It tells us about like what he comes home to at the end of the night, you know. And I think that is a big part of that growing picture that you start to see, where in the beginning he's showing up, he's going to work, he's playing one of the opera managers, you know. And then with each episode we draw bigger and bigger circles around the show. Because in the third episode the show closes. We can't just end it like that, otherwise, you know, what were we doing? You know,
well,
it's like,
the show closes, but it affects the ripple effect of his life.
Right. So we draw bigger and bigger circles around Scott, and we just kind of hope that by episode 3 you're like really sold on Scott. Even when you showed up for Phantom of the Opera, by the end you should be all there for this swing actor who's actually, I shouldn't have been that worried about it because he's an excellent storyteller. There is a moment of doubt that you experience when you're editing, where you're like, does anyone else love this guy as much as I do? Because like I really do love him in that unhealthy way.
Where can people hear your podcast?
It's on all the podcast networks that I know about. It's on Apple, Spotify, Amazon.
And the name of it again is
My Phantom Memory.
My Phantom Memory.
Yeah.
And do you have a website as well?
Yeah, it's on the Silver Podcast Network's website.
So for you, you're a film director as well as an editor, and this is the podcast is a documentary. How many is documentary your go-to, or is feature films more your normal discipline?
I'm like a fiction guy in denial that I'm in documentary land. I have like a very kind of like unhealthy relationship with documentary, where I just don't trust it as much as most people do when they're viewing it or experiencing it.
Why do you say you don't trust it?
Well, I've been in enough situations where I just see that it's basically a manipulation, like that you do to reality, to like even when you're filming.
Oh, like a reality show kind of thing, or
there's always some element of it
where you're trying to find the drama or trying to find.
Yeah, and it feels more vampiric, you know, like you're sort of glomming onto a story that's really happening, and you're trying to suck the story out of it. And when you make a fiction film, I feel like it's only benefits people, because you're giving people like a little bit of money to like pretend
to pretend
and like it like brings people together,
as if, right?
And it's fun, and like you make sets and props and stuff. Like I feel like there's something just fundamentally good about that.
Tell me some of the ruling ideas that you came up with in this series. Like what are the lessons that he learned, or experiences that he had that stand out to you as the director, editor, producer?
The lessons that he learned that stand out to me.
Or where he changed.
Yeah. Well, to me, it is a sort of a grieving story, and like a lot of grieving stories, it's one of those things. For me personally, I don't know that I'm having an emotion until I'm like really having it.
Yeah.
And that emotion can color my world. It can like change my perception of what people are thinking about me, or my perceptions about that. And then like when I finally put a name to it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm really upset because of X, Y, Z. Then it brings that kind of clarity. And I felt like that was something that was, when Scott came in for his interviews, with the show closing in 3 months, there's a lot that you just have to do, and you just have to work through, and you just have to like just keep doing your job, you know, sort of nose to the grindstone kind of feeling. But as you know, no actor really wants to. Actors really want to talk about it too,
right?
You know, so it's like he had this opportunity, and like it kind of in the amidst all the storm of like a show closing, like he had the opportunity to sort of relax and think about it for a little bit.
Well, how many hours do you have to interview someone for a 3-part documentary? Or is there an average? Is there a rule? Is there, are we in Wild West land?
Yeah, we're in Wild West land. I knew the shape of the story kind of coming into it, because the show was closing, and that was definitive to like what I thought was going to be the arc of that that show. It was going to come up, the closure was going to happen, and there was going to be a little bit of life after. But anything after the show closing was always going to feel like a coda. So really, I don't know in terms of the hours, how much time we spent in the booth. We probably recorded, 5 or 6 sessions, and they were probably about an hour each.
Wow.
And then the amount of tape you recorded backstage would be, sometimes he would just set a recorder up and make sure we got the sounds of machines coming up from under the.
Oh, great.
But he has.
So you're layering all of these things, B-roll and just sound-wise, you're like a radio show, kind of. Yeah.
It's I was bringing a lot of film documentary biases into this process, because I don't really, I'd never really worked on a podcast before. And in film editing, you kind of see something before somebody says what it is. A lot of times you let the audience experience something, and a little bit of mystery or curiosity about what they're seeing. A few seconds before somebody says, and then the crocodile came in.
Right.
If you watch any nature documentary, that's how they do it. You see something pouncing, like a lion pouncing on a mouse. You see it for a little bit before the narrator comes in and says,
crocodile.
Stalking his prey. And so I kind of always, I did that with this podcast. I just sort of walk it back a little bit, because, there's only so much you can listen to something without knowing what you're listening to, I think. So it became a little normalized, but it still felt like it was pretty different. I sometimes I'd listen to a normal podcast, and I'd realize how much people are just reading script. And
so this is all experience.
We didn't do that
all storytelling.
At all. No, it's all interview that's been edited down to basically an audio memoir.
How do you choose what to keep and what to cut?
You just, I just go by my biases.
Wow.
I just go by what I feel like. It's not that scientific. There's only so many stories you can include, and once you figure out what the themes are, I think the themes become a big guiding light for that, because even when we're not talking about Phantom of the Opera, we would always be talking about time and the way we can't tell what changes are happening over time.
Right.
And we were talking about memory, and how memory is something that changes over time too, without knowing it always.
And these are also themes within Phantom of the Opera, ironically.
Yeah.
In a way, in the storyline.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, he points out that it doesn't come up too often that a theme from Phantom of the Opera becomes a theme in the podcast, but it does happen at least once.
Wow. Wow. So Mark, where are you hoping to go with this, and what's next for you?
This podcast right now is, I think it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's getting some selections in terms of best podcast of the week, and we just got featured by Apple yesterday.
Congratulations.
And that always gives a bit of a bump in terms of number of downloads.
Right.
And in terms of what it's supposed to do, I just really wanted to do it just to do it. I wasn't thinking that pragmatically, honestly. And it was also difficult after the pandemic to make a film happen, in terms of just all the regulations that you'd have to follow and how much care you'd have to take. And also, no one really wanted to look at the real world at that point. So in terms of documentary, there was something about the audio experience that was really appealing to me. And also, with the Phantom, we didn't have the access to bring cameras backstage, but Scott had the access to bring in a tiny little recorder.
Right. So you're bringing in the story audibly.
Yeah.
Right. The theater of the mind.
The theater of the mind, yeah. And that helped a lot for some reason. The ability to, when I didn't know Scott that well, this is kind of an answer to a prior question. When I didn't know Scott that well, and we would be just kind of warming up, I realized that something that would be really interesting to get would be just his experience of the Majestic Theater itself. So before we were getting into kind of the juicy material, on one of the early recording sessions, I had him close his eyes and explain just in present tense mode what it was like for him to go to work. And it's you go on 45th Street, and then there's a big door that goes to an alleyway, and then it's covered, but then the next alleyway is not covered, and so if it's raining, you get rained on, and the guy's throwing the ushers are throwing out the recycling bottles from the night before because of all the liquor that they sell at the Majestic Theater, you know.
Right.
And then he gets buzzed into another door, and then he talks to the stage manager, and it's either Jim or Jeff.
Painting the scene, right.
Yeah, and there's the call board that says who's doing the ins and outs that day. Anyway, so like I had
And who am I today?
Yeah, and who am I today?
This week, right?
Who am I today? Yes, and I had him do a few takes of that because I felt like that kind of hypnotic experience of kind of that also kind of goes with just kind of getting the New York off of you when you're coming in, like just kind of having him do that. I literally asked him to close his eyes or just stare at the table when he was doing that, and I felt like that was kind of a part of how we were building what this podcast was going to be. Like the Majestic Theater that has the Phantom of the Opera in it is going to be gone, and the version we're going to keep is the version that's in Scott's mind, in the way that it's related to Scott's stories. And like at first, when I was editing it, I wasn't sure how much of that tour of the Majestic would warrant itself. You know, it felt like we're just seeing stuff that we're not really seeing. You know, so now I'm walking up the stairs. You know, we call this naked lady landing because there's nowhere for people to change, and the ladies are always changing here. You know,
naked lady landing.
But then it becomes relevant in later stories that he tells that like the dressing rooms are 4 flights above the stage, and he's got to run down when he almost misses his cue, and you know.
Right.
So that kind of theater of the mind element became a big part of. I thought the appeal of making this an audio-only experience, just like using that aspect of it, that imaginary aspect that you have to bring to audio.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to have you here, and good luck with everything.
All right, thank you for having me. I had a great time talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us with Secrets of the Stage. I'm Quinn Lemley. We air every Sunday night at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time on mnn.org, or you can check us out on any platform that you find your podcast. Please, we would like to bring more content to you. Like, share, and subscribe to us. Also, come visit me at quinnlemley.com. Subscribe to my newsletter for the latest in episodes and concerts. Until next time, I'm Quinn Lemley with Secrets of the Stage.